Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're about to um, start our second panel of the day. My name is Erica, and I'm one of the organizers for James Walk Toronto 2022. And this is my colleague, Kate. Today, our event came in partnership with Green Line. I'm going to pass on the mic to Kate, who's going to do the land acknowledgement.
We would like to honor the land that we are on, which has been the site of human activity since time immemorial. It is the traditional territories of the Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations. We recognize the many nations of Indigenous people who presently live on this land and who have spent time here, and the ancestors on this land known as Turtle Island. We recognize and support the United Nations declarations on the rights of Indigenous peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. Now my pleasure to introduce Alex Varudos, who comes to us from the Green Line and will be serving as moderator today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alex Varudos. I'm a reporter for the Green Line. So the Green Line is a hyper-local independent news outlet that investigates the way that we live to help young Torontonians survive and thrive in a city that is as rapidly changing as ours. To see more of our work, you can check out our website, thegreenline.to. And you can also check out our social pages, especially on Instagram, where we post a lot of our stories and features and some fun videos for you to see. We're here today to discuss with our esteemed panelists. We're going to discuss a little bit about the culture of food in our city and the role that we all play in shaping it. Beyond the charcoal ice cream cones and the over-the-top Caesar garnishes, there's a whole world of issues tied to our food, and each one has its own dedicated community behind it. From issues of food availability and food justice to culinary heritage and identity. Each one is another stroke in the painting that makes up Toronto. So today we're lucky enough to have some of these movers and shakers with us to give an insight into their world. So I'll introduce our panelists now. We're going to have Carl Liu. So Carl Liu is a food writer at the Toronto Star. He's also written for Now Magazine, Vice Canada's Munchies, and The Grid. He also used to be the resident recipe tester at the Star, developing and testing recipes before they were published in the paper. We have Hansel Igbawa. Hansel is the Right to Food campaign coordinator at Food Share Toronto. He's also a community researcher and a committee member at the Black Youth Farming Collective. As a multidisciplinary artist and filmmaker, Hansel also occupies a space right where food and art intersect. We're also going to be joined by Shazim Amir. Shazim is the owner of Emmerich Caribbean Grocers in Scarborough, which is a pillar in the community for West Indian produce and pantry items. Shazim served that community for over 20 years, I think, and has maintained the kind of owner-customer relationship that's largely going extinct in our world of grocery delivery apps and superstores. And we also will be joined by Laurie Beezer. Laurie is the founder and market manager of the Afro-Caribbean Farmers Market, which is Canada's first culturally specific farmers market. She's also co-produced the Afro-Indigenous Food Security Festival in Toronto. Laurie endeavors to empower the African diaspora with knowledge and resources in order to build a level playing field that supports overall health. So welcome to the panel. So to kick things off, Shazim's going to be joining us in a bit, I believe. But to kick things off, everyone plays a different role in Toronto's food scene. So to begin, I was thinking we could give everybody a chance to talk a little bit about what you all do and why your work is important, not just to your immediate community that you serve, but to Toronto as a whole. Laurie, I was thinking we could start with you for this one because I know that a lot of what you do involves, connecting people with their community and the African diaspora to their culinary heritage. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about that?
Okay, so thanks for the intro, Alex. So again, my name is Laurie Beezer, and I am the market manager for Canada's very first culturally specific farmers market. Sorry, I didn't turn my phone off. And the goal for the market really was to, or still is to provide that selling platform for our local Black farmers, and also provide a platform for our local food producers of the diaspora. And we use this platform in two ways, and that one of the ways was really to help animate and revitalize York Eglinton, specifically along the stretch of Eglinton that's been heavily impacted by the Metro links. So we've been able to do that successfully. We did that last year. We brought close to 10,000 people to that space, and we brought them back via food. So we've empowered the area once again. We've empowered the community to come in and purchase food from people that look like them, which we find to be very important.
Absolutely. Hansel, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Hansel Ibawa. I'm the Right to Food campaign coordinator at FoodShare. And a little about my work is really just one, kind of pushing the city of Toronto to recognize and acknowledge that we all have the right to food as human beings, as people living in Toronto. And currently at the state, with the state of food insecurity and other issues within our food system, like it's obvious that our food rights are not being respected. Even how we view, farmers market or community gardens. At the onset of the pandemic, they were being seen as recreational, and so they were closed, but grocery stores were kept open. So it's even that perspective really goes to show that food and food production, or like the different ways we access food, isn't prioritized because we don't see food as a right, but rather seen as a commodity. So yeah, that's my main work at FoodShare in pushing for the city to recognize that we have the right to food, and there's a food charter that's over 21 years right now, and we're asking for the city to update that charter with consultation with community. And outside of my work at FoodShare, I work with the Black Youth Farming Collective, and we work out of Brampton, and we work with Black youth in Brampton, developing a research and demonstration farm. I just leave it at that for now.
Perfect, thank you. And Karan, if you could tell us a little bit about what you do as well.
Right. So I'm the food writer at the Toronto Star, and in a nutshell, I think my job, or I hope my job, is to make people smarter about their city using food as an entry point. I don't think a dish is ever just a dish, or an ingredient is just an ingredient. Everything is always tied to notions of identity, community, history, politics, economics, labor, and I like to use food as an entry point to get at those issues and how they differ among different communities within the city, and how they change with time and generations and migration as the city changes, and how that affects what we eat. Yeah, I think that every story out there has a food angle, and since everyone eats, everyone buys groceries, it's a great way to get people's attention and then explore those larger issues through food.
Excellent. Okay, so having established all your fields and the work that you do, I think the first question that we should probably get to is, what are the barriers involved in the work that you do? Because for a lot of people it can look pretty straightforward and simple, but when you're actually like rolling up your sleeves and trying to do the job, you start to realize that it's not a free-flowing process trying to make changes like this in the city. And so I know a lot of your work is actually revolving around specifically finding barriers that people encounter and kind of taking them on. So I was thinking maybe you could start us off by talking to us a little bit about what the barriers are that people are encountering, as well as yourself.
Yeah, I think I could start by talking generally that we know that many communities, especially BIPOC communities, experience food insecurity in the city. We know specifically that Black households are 28% or 20.9% of Black households experience food insecurity, and 28.2% of Indigenous households experience food insecurity. And those are like the two communities that experience the most disproportionate amount of food insecurity. And there's so much more that happens within our food system, even who picks out food, the apples you buy in the grocery store, whatever food you get, like who is picking it, like the food that gets imported, where's this food coming from, who's growing that food. There's so many things that we don't get to see, we don't know. Just to know who picks out food in Ontario, especially, or around Canada, like food that's grown in Canada is mostly picked by migrant farm workers that are paid unfairly, are living in really bad living conditions. Most of them have no pathway to citizenship or residence in Canada. So those are just like highlights of some of the issues that are affected. And coming down to Toronto specifically, the city of Toronto put out a food charter almost 21 years ago now, and the food charter was the first of its kind, and it was meant to be this fit that other cities around Canada and North America were meant to emulate, and it was going to be very impactful and tackle food insecurity in the city. Since the passing of the charter, food insecurity has only gotten worse in Toronto. So not only was this charter not being recognized, but it was honestly just put in the vault and put away for 21 years. When we came forward to asking the city, meeting with city council and city staff and asking, do you even know that there's a food charter in Toronto? They don't, like many people, most city staff and most councillors don't even know the existence of the food charter. And this food charter is it's a document that's meant to, one, recognize that we have the right to food. We have the right to be able to access food. Everyone has the right to be able to access food in a way they choose to, and to be able to access food that's also, culturally appropriate to them. And so, yeah, those are some highlights of the issues we face in Toronto, and also more obviously like the prices of food going really high, and we know that income and housing directly correlates to food, because people would pay for housing first, or people would prioritize other bills before food, and food always becomes the last thing. But we have the right to food, and we should be able to access food. Food should be affordable. Food should be more accessible to folks in our city.
Definitely. I'll take a quick second here just to introduce Shazim. Thanks for joining us. If we just got started with the conversation, if you want to take a minute to just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and the work that you do in your community.
Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Alex, Karen, Hansel, Lori. Nice to be here. Hope you guys are doing well, enjoying beautiful weather. Mother's Day coming up, so happy Mother's Day to all of you. Lori. So we've been in the food industry for the last 25 years, and we've been involved with the imports, mainly, especially from the Caribbean, food products, organic, actually authentic food as we call it. And we operate retail stores in the Kennedy and Eglinton neighborhood. So we come with about 25, 30 years of retail food experience, import experience.
Perfect. So on the discussion right now, I'll ask that we mute our mics as well when we're just to help the audio. But we were talking about some of the barriers that we encounter in our work and in the work that you do for the community. And since we were just speaking with you, I was going to say I know that one of the things that you've mentioned in the past when I had the chance to interview you was about being able to compete with bigger grocery stores. Do you want to speak a little bit more about that and about getting the ingredients that your community is looking for?
Alex, small business is the backbone of the community, of the economy, actually, and it comes down to, how can I put it, great customer service that we as small businesses give to the consumer. When you go to the big chain stores, actually, you don't get that personalized experience from them. And how can I put it? But repeat that question for me, Alex, so I can.
Rather just like any other barriers that you might have run into, in trying to do what you do, because you do feel a very specific, a very specific role in your community. I mean, it's not just like a cash grab, get the cheapest thing and kind of like sell it out, for example. But nothing necessarily like specific. I know also, for Lori, for example, for you to like kick off your farmers market, you tried to launch it in 2017, and it did go well, but then there was a pretty big like stall there, for example. before you were able to like find the right spot and get the support. Do you want to touch on that a little bit and maybe discuss like what it was like for you to get it off the ground?
Sure, sure. Yeah, like Alex said, 2017 was our pilot. We did that for 9 weeks. It was very successful, so we extended it another 3 weeks. After that 12-week pilot, we're like, okay, we need a home now. And, I'm on the hunt looking for a space. And, public space isn't easy to get, especially, if you're trying to do community work. I'm not from a city agency. I'm just a local resident that saw a hole that needed to be plugged. And looking for a home for 3 years, it was a thing. And when you did find a potential home, a lot of these places wanted big money to house a farmer's market. And I'm like, listen, these vendors do not pay a lot of money to be at a farmer's market. They are perishables and they need to be sold. So at my farmer's market, the most you'll pay as a perishable is about $30. And so I can't, pay you $700 for a space for 3 to 4 hours. So that was one of the major things with getting this farmer's market going, was finding a space. And so in the summer of 2020, I was out for a walk and I literally ran into Councillor Josh Matlow, the area. And I pitched Josh the idea of bringing a farmer's market to York Eglinton. And we just started working on it immediately. And knowing what the challenges would be for the market and the community, I created a currency for the market called Callaloo Cash. And this currency is in denominations of $3. And what I want to do is I want to work with food security agencies where they purchase these vouchers and they're able to give it to people in their immediate communities that would benefit from coming to the market, and they're able to purchase the foods that they want, not necessarily the food that's given to you at a lot of these food banks that are not culturally appropriate. So keeping that in mind, I totally understood where I was going with the market and what I wanted to give back to the community. And I do that via the Callaloo Cash. So that was one of the major things in bringing this market to the people, was ensuring that the stigma behind a very expensive farmer's market isn't necessarily translated through the Afro-Caribbean farmer's market.
Mm-hmm. Karan, I want to touch on you as well, because I know that as a food writer, you're not exempt from a lot of the issues that maybe go unnoticed by a lot of the people who pick up a paper and just read a restaurant review or food, like your story that you published recently on that little densely populated strip on Gerrard East. What was it like for you getting into the scene? And I know, from when you first started versus now, how have things changed and what have you run into?
Yeah, I mean, where to start? The challenges of my job. I think a lot of it is kind of reestablishing trust with communities, and a lot of restaurants that do cuisines that weren't traditionally represented in major media outlets in Toronto or Canada in the past, and trying to reestablish that trust and being able to tell the stories of the people correctly in the way that they wanted to, without feeling like I'm just, parachuting in. So it's a lot of rebuilding trust and establishing those connections to a point where they feel comfortable talking to me, and going in with a photographer and taking pictures of themselves or the food as well. And another challenge, I think, is just kind of rewiring how a reader approaches food. It's never just about the like eating at like the buzziest restaurant or covering new restaurant openings. Is to take a plate of food or the menu and kind of explore the point of view of the people making it and how it reflects their identities, where they came from, what they're trying to do, and to also especially within the last 2 years, bring up issues of, how workers are being treated, issues of rent, food costs, all those things that kind of factor into a restaurant, and how things are the way they are that diners don't necessarily know about before, because it wasn't just talked about. The restaurant experience is supposed to be about, a big smoke and mirrors show that everything's flawless and seamless, but that's not how things operate. So I think the challenge is getting readers to rethink notions of what cheap eats are, or what authentic cooking is, or which cuisines are allowed to be considered fine dining and which cuisines need to be elevated, taking those terms that have been so entrenched in food culture for, however many decades or centuries, and rewiring it to better reflect a city like Toronto, which is so diverse and it has so many different people from all cultures and socioeconomic status, to make it a more level playing ground. And and just to make diners more aware of how food systems work.
As a follow-up to that, and I guess this is an open question to everybody, really, but like, have you noticed a shift in the way that people are approaching these things or interpreting the food scene? Like, do you find people are being more critical, or being more hands-on, wanting to learn more beyond, like I said, like the over-the-top garnishes on your Caesar or anything like that? Do you feel like people are engaging more? And I mean, really, this question applies to everyone, because Lori, I imagine, and Jazine, you see your clientele like firsthand too. Like, has it changed over time? But anybody can weigh in if there's any thought on that.
I think because of the pandemic, a lot of readers are more aware of, the whole notion of the frontline worker and the stuff that they have to deal with, whether it's harassment from customers or not being able to make a living wage, even though they're the ones that have kept the city running for like the last almost 3 years now. And restaurants have been at the forefront of a lot of policies that the province have kind of instituted, whether it's, vaccine passports or mask mandates and stuff like that. I think there's more awareness around the issue of labor, and there's more awareness and concern about worker well-being, which I think it's very refreshing, because I don't think this was really on people's minds before.
Let me jump in here for a second, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many challenges we actually face. And Alex, if we started, I mean, that would be an endless list. But let me elaborate on a few issues that we currently face. I mean, the two main necessities of life are food and shelter. Both of them are beyond what people can afford. Look, Alex, there's lots of reasons for price hikes. Honestly, man, these gas prices have just gone out of the roof. The pandemic, whether it's the war in Ukraine, whatever the reason, I mean, we're in big trouble unless the government does something about it. I mean, the logistics to import, and Lori might be able to jump in here, the logistics to get food into our stores, it's not easy. I mean, we start, I mean, I'll tell you why. I mean, what we do is very important, because small business, they're the backbone of the economy, right? And as food retailers, we are the middlemen who get food on your table. I mean, it sounds easy, but it's very complicated, Alex. When you import produce, it goes through a lot of hurdles. I mean, it starts from the farmer, then it goes to the pack houses for grading and packing. Brokers ship it. We go through the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to ensure the food is fit for consumption. Finally, it reaches your table. I mean, there's lots of paperwork, there's lots of inspection, logistics, but we ensure authentic, healthy, good food reaches your table. And remember, I'm going to elaborate on this. I'm going to talk about this a little later on. But organic food, that's the key, and I think we're moving away from it.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I think this is something too that has come up quite a bit, is like access to like a good quality food versus kind of like the fast and ready to go and cheaper stuff that we're always driving towards. But what let's say all these barriers that we're talking about now, all these like hurdles that we have to jump through, let's say they're taken care of and everything is like set, and the city ends up looking exactly how we want it. What would it look like? What should people kind of envision when they're envisioning the perfect Toronto in terms of like food access, food culture, food everything, right? What does it look like to everyone? And anyone can jump in to answer this one first if you have an idea.
Alex, let me tell you what a perfect city would look like to me. A perfect city to me is a healthy city. And we are far away from a healthy city. And we are moving further away. Let me elaborate a little bit on that, Alex. You go to a grocery store, you will see organic marked on organic food, right? So why isn't GMO marked on the foods? You'll see organic marked, but why don't you see genetically modified on the food or on the labels? We want people to see something is healthy. So why don't we want people to see something's not healthy? I mean, I think we're just silently killing people. The government has strict labeling requirements. So why can't GMO be added on their labels? Like when I was growing up, man, you hardly heard of cancer, but I mean, you hear it quite often right now. I mean, what is it? Is it all the chemicals we're eating? Everything that we're consuming? I mean, either remove GMO products off our shelves or pay for Medicare in the long run. I mean, I just think prevention is better than cure. Let me put it this way, Alex. I always tell our customers that make food your medicine. Otherwise, the medicine will become your food.
That's actually pretty good. I'm gonna have to remember that one because I feel like that's something too that people it always comes up in conversation. And so, for you, like if you're the one that's kind of pushing the government to like fix a food charter and like fix access to food for people, you're kind of doing a lot of that nitty gritty work that people need to work on. What if you had like a blank check, like if you could make all the changes that you would need to make, like to give access to people and kind of get all the red tape out of the way, what would it be?
Alex, I would encourage the younger generation, the younger generations that moving away from farming, and we have this problem, a lot of this problem, especially in the Caribbean, is the younger generation does not want to do farming. I mean, they're technology people, they're tech savvy, they're on their iPads, they're on their phones. And the farming generation, the old school style of farming, that's going away. And it is, I would just encourage, I mean, healthy eating, avoid canned and processed foods. Let's support the farmers so that they can continue farming, because we're seeing the trend. The trend, I see it, man. Canned foods are going off the shelves faster than fresh stuff. Why? Because the fresh stuff is so much more expensive. It's become hard to afford because of the logistics to get the fresh stuff, organic, authentic stuff on the tables. So people are moving towards processed and canned food, which is a recipe for disaster.
I think it'd be interesting to hear what Hansel has to say about this too, because I know that Hansel's involved with the Black Youth Farming Collective, which is geared towards getting people more involved in growing their own food. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. I think I'll just start by talking about like what I guess like a more food secure, food healthy city would look like to me. I think a city where one, like the government acknowledges that we have a right to food and respects that, and the policies that created within the structure of the government also recognizes that. So like not seeing community gardens, because if we're talking about like people even growing food, people need to be able to access space to growing food. Like Lori has talked about, accessing public space is really difficult because we don't have access to it easily. Like you can't grow food on the sidewalk. It's not allowed. Like, so it's like things that seem very minuscule and small, like actually play a big role, because it really shapes our mind and like how the government and how we view land, how we view the environment. Like the fact that we can't all grow food wherever we want and access food wherever we want is a problem. So like starting with that fundamentals of like winning the right to food in our city, and like having more people, like you said, Shazim, involved in farming and growing their own food. And I think the most important thing is for people to have the choice to access the food they need and also the food they want. I think those two are really important. That not only are we accessing food that we need to live, but like also food you want. And people should be able to access food in the way they see fit for themselves and for their family, and with dignity, and not having to, line up in queues to access food, not having to beg for food, not having to go through all types of hoops to access food. And when it comes to people getting involved in growing food, I think it's a wider problem that's beyond just, I guess, food. There's a lot of contributing factors to it. Like most, and I'm going to speak specifically to Black communities, or even like BIPOC communities generally. Most BIPOC communities are kind of centralized in urban areas. So more BIPOC people across Canada are in urban areas. So when you grow up in an urban area, what does that mean? You're in a concrete jungle. There's not that many green spaces. A lot of people don't grow up like having farms around, or like knowing where the food comes from. People don't even know that carrots come from the ground or grow under the ground. Like people don't know that apples come from trees. Like, so there's a lot, people are growing up without that knowledge and without that relationship to food and to land. So when we mend that, people will return back. So when people have more access to public spaces, more access to green spaces, more access to nature, more access to be able to even go in nature and be part of nature, then we will see more people return back to that. All people need is the opportunity to do that, and we don't have that.
Well, if I can say, there may be some light at the end of the tunnel with regards to a really good city of Toronto. And that is the International Public Markets Conference. I sit at a table that has put in a request to actually host this International Public Markets Conference for 2023. St. Lawrence Market will be the host site for this. And what this conference will entail is all of the heavy hitters of public markets around the world will converge onto Toronto and talk to people like myself who have small farmers markets, because ultimately what we want to see Toronto be is Toronto, the market city. And what in time, there will be pockets, many more pockets of small markets situated all across the city of Toronto. That's our vision, because we understand that markets are the first-hand reflection of all cultures, of any culture. If you want to experience culture, the very first thing you want to do is have access to its food, yeah? So creating that Toronto market city feel with different markets, much like the Spain concept. If you've ever visited Spain in Europe, you'll know that Spain literally, it is baked in the cake in Spain that wherever you live, you are a 10-minute walk to any food space. So the food market in Spain is just as important as a library. Believe it or not, that's just the life over there in Spain. They eat clean, they eat well, and they also understand the importance of what that market represents in their community. So, a lot happening in the city, and fingers crossed that we are able to host that IPMC, the International Public Markets Conference. After that, you'll be able to see, I know there's going to be so much happening with other little individual markets happening all over the city of Toronto. So fingers crossed. And we're going to import even more food. We really are. We're going to get, especially in the Black community anyway, I know from the Caribbean, we're really tapping into our ancestral lands and scaling up the growing of our ancestral lands and shipping those foods up here, and also utilizing the urban Black farmers to grow what is in the diaspora up here in Turtle Island. So we're really trying to use the South and the islands of Turtle Island to really deliver great programming and fresh, clean, culturally appropriate food, really for everyone, specifically here in Toronto. So fingers crossed.
Carmen, what about yourself? Do you want to weigh in? Because I'm curious. I mean, you know, as a food writer, you got to like really dig deep and investigate a lot of the things. And I'm wondering what you would like to see like down the line if you had a blank check.
Yeah, I mean, kind of echoing what the other three panelists have said, I think in order for the city to be really great for everyone in terms of food, I think there has to be really big systemic changes in terms of infrastructure, living wages, so that everyone can have access to the food that they want. I'm not even thinking about, you know, making Toronto like the world-class city, so everyone in the world knows about it. Let's figure out the needs of the people who live here first. So I think things like infrastructure and public transportation. The first year of the pandemic, I wrote a piece in the Star about how I had to like travel like 40 minutes just to get like a basket of peaches, of Ontario grown peaches. Just because like I don't have a car, I rely on public transit. So like, and I don't have children. Imagine if I had children, I had to like figure out how to get children with me to go to the farmer's market. And then the hours are also limited. So like, what if I have a job where I can't duck out for an hour to get this stuff? And then I also live in an area that's not too walkable. So, and you know, what happens if you have mobility issues? It's really hard to get to the access of food that you want. So for me, if I had a blank check, I would kind of echo what Lori said and have like these little pockets of markets and small businesses that really specialize in the food that those particular neighborhoods need, where it's staffed by people who live in the area, know the customers, know what to bring in. And I think it'll just make the certain neighborhoods just so much more vibrant, and like the possibilities are there. And I mean, aside from that, it's also, you know, making sure everyone's making a living wage, and that we're not relying on tipping, which creates a really weird power imbalance between those working in hospitality and customers. Like, we shouldn't rely on customers to like to supplement income. You don't see that anywhere else in like doctors or like dentists. It's really weird that the people who are, you know, serving us food, we have to supplement their income. Like, there's just so many things that needs to change systemically to, I think, really improve the food scene. And then it'll trickle down. It'll create, you know, if people are making living wages, then there'll be fewer barriers for them to open a business that they want in like a neighborhood that they want, that and attract people, because we'll have like better transit systems, or people won't have to like travel like an hour by bus to get to the places to get the foods that they want. Like, there's these like really core changes that need to be made that will trickle down and make everyone happier in this a much more delicious city.
It's interesting because the more you look at it, you see like how, you know, consolidating any industry into a couple big power companies or anything seems to be the opposite of what we're noticing is good for us. So you notice it with, you know, even journalism, or whether it's, you know, your meat processing plants or grocery stores, and then you realize that the smaller neighborhood oriented businesses seem to be a better way to distribute these resources. So if we come back to present day now, what, for the viewers that are actually watching and are now kind of up to speed on a couple of these issues, what are the next steps? What can they do? One of the questions we even have here is from Wesley, and he's asking, can one of the panelists name some programs in the city that Toronto has that focus on that kind of food and gardening, farming programs? He says, I'm thinking of Black Creek, Food Share, and Park People. Is there some others anyone can mention? Anyone can dive in. I don't know if Hansel, maybe you might know some more programs as well.
Yeah, I think some of the names that we mentioned. I'm a Food Share, so there's Black Creek, there's African Food Basket that also operates out of the Black Creek farm. The Toronto Black Farmers Space. There's a farm called Akachi up in Vaughan. There's honestly there is enough initiatives, there's enough programs, there's a lot of urban farmers in Toronto. Also, yeah, I think there's a Toronto Urban Farmers group as well, that if you search, you will find. And I think the problem isn't necessarily like finding specific programs. It's more so like the work that you have to do with yourself, like the choices you make around, like, like because a lot of people who are watching might be people who are not making living wage. So like, it's like, we need to support initiatives that are pushing for living wage. We need to support initiatives that are asking for, the right to food. So it's like those systemic issues are just as relevant, because if they don't change, it'll be harder to do, the things we do. Because if the city recognizes our right to food and makes like, active initiatives that support that. Like, for example, Lori trying to find a place for the farmers market wouldn't have taken 3 years. And there's many, many, many people who have similar initiatives, whether it be like Dashman One, they cook for like indigenous elders downtown and like people who are houseless. And it took them so long to find a place. Even one of Fuchsia's initiative at Flemo Farm, in that took over 10 years to establish like a local community garden. Over 10 years. Like, why would it take so long? So like, honestly, it's the systemic issues that need to change. And it's like, you look within yourself, like, how can I support this? Because there's lots of organizations and there's lots of community groups. There's lots of initiatives that are pushing for this. You just need to see how you can support that, whether it be financial, whether it be showing up, whether it be sharing the message. Because these people are saying, most of the things now on social media, like if you go on Instagram, you find a lot of things. And like, as this initiative happened, I'm sure you can find a local initiative in every neighborhood in Toronto that's speaking to any of these issues we've talked about. So it's more so like seeing how you can show up for that.
Yeah. And I imagine, talking with your counselor, kind of like what Lori did with Josh to make the farmers market happen. Yeah, I think it's also important to make those in power who actually have the ability to make legislative changes to like let them know what you want to see changed or improved in order to make food access a more equitable thing in the city.
Any other advice in terms of how even just to like explore, like if people want to get out? I grew up first generation, like Canadian in Scarborough. Like we were kind of like closed into a bubble because we couldn't explore the city too much, and we were kind of tied down. And then as an adult, it became a little difficult to break out. And I feel like that's a shared experience with a lot of people, is kind of leaving their comfort zone and exploring what the city has to offer. And I was wondering if there was any advice on that front too, just to even get to know what is in essence all of our food culture. It belongs to all of us equally, but a lot of us are disconnected from it. Does anyone want to weigh in on that?
Sure. Like, I visit a farmer's market. These are your first-hand people, period. In order for you to be a market purveyor in my market, you have to be the food producer, period. So speak to the people that are at these farmers markets, because they typically should be the producers of the food. You're able to speak to the farmers. The Black farmers are my primary farmers. You can speak to Jacqueline. You can speak to Noel. You can visit their market. I have food entrepreneurs that make food that they use from our local growers. So these people using these commercial kitchens that are hard to find and have access to, which is another barrier that so many people in the food industry are experiencing, is these incubator kitchens. But visit the farmers markets. These are the people that are bringing food to you firsthand.
I had really good samosas last year at the Afro-Caribbean Farmers Market.
I know, they like the best in the world. Yeah, I know.
Yes, and
Samosa delight. I know.
No, we have to.
I know.
We have to try.
I
It's
know.
a suggestion from Karen. We must visit.
You have to. You have to.
And like there was music playing and people
Yes.
were dancing and it was
Yes.
so much
Yes.
fun. And like
Yes.
like what Lori said, like just on a weekend, like on a nice day like today, pick a neighborhood, throw a dart on
Yeah.
the map,
Yeah.
just go.
Just
You
go.
know, what I like to do is that, you know, I'll look up a restaurant or a takeout place and be like, okay, that's my anchoring lunch place. And I will find a food store. I will find a snack place. I will find a supermarket and just walk around there for a few hours. And if the place isn't busy, sometimes I just, you know, strike up a conversation with the person working there, you know, oh, you know what, I've never been here before, or I'm not really familiar with this cuisine. Is there anything that you would recommend for first timers? And it just gets the dialogue going and you just learn so much. And the only way to do that is just talk to people and be inquisitive. You know, food, like I said before, just food is such a great entryway to learn about someone's culture or the neighborhood or the challenges that they're facing. And it just makes you so much smarter about the food around you and by extension, the city.
Yeah.
I was not talking.
Food definitely is that firsthand touch for culture. Really, it really is. And that gastronomic tourism that I would love to see happen here in the city is, you know, creating that new level of tourism through food with the, you know, the food market lovers section, where, you know, under that category and that tourism and that gastronomic tourism category, you know, we'll have specific markets that you can visit that are culturally specific, because people come to cities really sometimes just for a market. Believe it or not, I didn't really know this until I started to do the deep dive. And now that I'm in the industry, I see this tourism that Toronto really should capitalize on. And that is that gastronomic tourism, because we do have so many variations of food here that they need to just jump all over that. And that empowers our local growers. It's a trickling effect, you know, and the more local growers we can get involved in that gastronomic tourism for the food lovers markets, or the food market lovers, I should say, you know, it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, we have the talent. We just like
sure do
need the resources to do it. I mean, the idea of like Ontario grown callaloo, that's incredible.
Crazy. Yeah, I know. They look good too, eh? Yeah, I know. They're so huge.
And
they're so amazing. I know.
Yeah, and it's just like redefining what you know Ontario produce is, and it's, you know, actually reflecting the people who live here. And it's such a fantastic moment right now.
Yeah, yeah. We're in a really good space. Great things are coming. I know, despite the pandemic, despite it all, we demonstrated that at the farmers market last season, when we were kind of up and down and in and out and this and that. No one really knew if you could wear a mask, if you couldn't. I mean, I'm not a mask wearer, so I don't care. Wasn't wearing one, didn't plan on. So people came in and they celebrated, and they celebrated through food. And it was wonderful. People were able to breathe when they came through, because we are a farmers market. We're not an event, but my farmers markets are very eventful. So, they came each and every week, and they ate, and they purchased, and they had a really good time. And we're going to do that again this year with 2 different locations. I have another site, yay, at Keele and Eglinton. So we're covering that market on the weekends, Saturday and Sundays now.
I could definitely confirm that message because I was there too. And I was gonna just say, like, two organizations people can connect with in Scarborough specifically, because I know Scarborough often gets left out in conversations and like in things that happen around the city. There's a Scarborough Co-op Market, and there's also Birchmount Council, Birchmount Action Council. So it's kind of specific to the Birchmount area in Scarborough, but also they kind of support other folks who are doing other initiatives. So if you connect with people, folks from there, they can connect you with, other people in Scarborough. So that's like 2 specific things I could say to Scarborough.
I've made a note. I'm always trying to explore more Scarborough. Shazim, did you want to throw something else in before we wrap up?
I just wanted to say, man, there's so much out there to explore in food. I'm just going to go back to what Karen was saying. We've imported produce for over about 25, 30 years. And every day, Karen, Alex, Lori, we're seeing something new every day. And whenever we get a shipment of stuff, there's always a new sample of a different product in there, something we've never heard of. When we think we know, we've seen it all, there is something new every day. So I suggest people walk into an Indian grocery store, walk into a Pakistani store, walk into a Persian store, walk into a West Indian store, and you will be amazed at there's just awesome food out there. And believe me, we still haven't tried half of what's out there.
I will say, when I first walked in, and this is a great note to wrap up on. Very, very optimistic because we've painted a very bright picture for people to work towards. But when I walked in, the people that own these businesses are the experts. Shazim hit me with like half a dozen different names for Chenet. First of all, I didn't even know what Chenet was, and then he came in and his customers, and he's like, "What other name do you know? Did you know that this was named after this person?" Just like a complete expert in his field, in the food that he provides. So there really is something to actually just talking and getting to know your community too. But
every product in the Caribbean has a different name for it. Every island calls it different. So if you're Jamaican, you're calling something called Neesberry. Everybody else calls it Sapodella. There's golden apple. There's June plum. There's different names for everything. It's the same stuff. And I come from Africa, so we have the same food in Africa, but just different names. So sometimes we're all talking about the same thing, but just a different name.
Absolutely. On that note, we've come up on time, so I want to take a quick second to thank everybody for coming out and taking the time to talk to us. It's been such a treat to hear from movers and shakers and experts like yourselves. If you want more information, you can find it on the website. Hensel, Lori, Karan, and Shazim, thanks so much. And I think that's pretty much it for the panel. I think we should quickly rush outside and get as much sunlight as we can and go for a walking tour somewhere. So.
The small markets is where all the good stuff is.
Go to the small. That's right.
The farmers markets, like your neighborhood produce market. Like, to be honest, that's where the better stuff is.
Absolutely, and I tell everybody, support small business, man. They go above and beyond to serve you.
Especially fruit you can't find at the big supermarkets.
Absolutely. All right.
Whoever called the supermarket super, I don't know. Whoever came up with that dumb word supermarket. Who says it's super?
We'll wrap up the call here. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Take care.